Good morning. Welcome to the Sustainability, Housing, Efficiency, and Neighborhoods Subcommittee meeting. Thank you all for joining us. We'll begin by reviewing, or we don't have any calls from the cards from the public, so we'll begin by reviewing the meeting minutes. Do we have a motion on the meeting minutes from our April meeting?
I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. We do have a robust consent agenda today. Councilman.
Can I pull out number 2 just for one quick question?
Yes.
Thank
So we will move items 3 through 9.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Excellent. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Item number 2, which is grant application for Choice Neighborhoods Bike Share Pilot Program. We'll welcome our Housing Director, Cindy Stotler, for a quick
I just have
question.
a quick question. That's it. So unless you were going to do a demonstration anyway.
Well, since you're here, why don't you, it's a good news item, I think.
Sure. Do you want to go ahead? Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. We are applying for a Choice Neighborhoods Bike Share Pilot Program. It's a grant from Aetna Foundation, and it is intended to bring the grid bike share program over to the Choice Neighborhoods area. The Choice Neighborhoods area is just outside of downtown, so we have a lot of grid bike stations located in and around downtown to facilitate bicycle riding between locations in downtown, biking to work, biking to the transit stations and the bus stops. So the grid bike program has not expanded past east past 16th Street yet, and that is where our Choice Neighborhoods area is for the Choice Neighborhoods Planning and Action Grant. We have 577 units of public housing in that neighborhood, and we have a lot of residents who do not own cars. So what we'd like to do is expand the grid bike program over there and give them the opportunity to use the bicycles to get to the bus stops and get to the light rail station at 12th and Washington and Jefferson. And what this does is it provides something that our residents do not have in public housing, which is a credit or a debit card to check out the bikes. So Aetna Foundation would give us a means to provide our residents with some subsidy to help them check out the bikes and use them. So that in a nutshell is what we're asking for.
Great for my question. Thank you. So this I had some thoughts about this program, but this is grant money, not general fund money. So really, if we didn't use it, it would go somewhere else for something else, not to us.
Yes,
Right.
Councilman, this is an Aetna Foundation grant. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Do we have a motion on item 2?
I'll move on item 2.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. That passes unanimously, and there were a lot of good things in the consent agenda to move our HR department more efficiently, and we're going to be partnering with Goodwill on Workforce, so that's a big partnership. Since you are already here, we will move right into item number 12, and we'll actually take the next 3 items together as one presentation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. Up here with me is Deputy Director over Development, Angela Duncan, and we are here to talk to you today about the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. Today we'll present 2 projects that are ready to move forward with redevelopment through rental assistance demonstration, and we'll also ask your approval to submit RAD applications for 6 other public housing properties that we believe will significantly benefit from conversion to this program. I do not have the... Sorry, technical difficulties. Let me move on to the next slide. So first of all, just to refresh everyone's memory, what is rental assistance demonstration? It's a mouthful that we call RAD. We shorten it to RAD. It is a program that was created in 2012 by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development to provide a new tool for public housing agencies, and I'm going to quote, to address the daunting backlog of capital repairs in the nation's public housing stock and to stem the loss of affordable units. So what RAD does is it provides a solution for our current public housing model that's about 80 years old and is failing. It gives us leverage for redevelopment and capital improvements, and it provides a stable funding platform going forward. So before rental assistance demonstration, our public housing properties are funded via formula, and that's the current funding that we have for public housing. So you get a certain amount per every unit, and that's supposed to cover your operations and maintenance costs. And if we get 100% of that funding, that pretty much does cover our operations and maintenance costs. But unfortunately, for the last 10 years or so, HUD decides somewhere in the middle of the year that they're only going to give you about 85 or 80% of that funding. So that cuts your operations and maintenance costs. So we're always behind on those two costs. The RAD, right now we're unable to borrow funds for repairs or replacements or remodeling or anything like that. We also have a funding for capital improvement that comes directly from HUD, and we have no other means of financing any improvements. The lack of capital funding over the last 10, 15 years has resulted in deteriorating living conditions in our public housing. That, again, we have no way of maintaining our public housing and funding capital improvements in the current public housing model. The last thing is residents lose housing assistance if they move out of public housing. So generally, public housing is the last stage of finding housing for people with very little or no income. They can come to public housing, but once they leave public housing, there's no other public housing assistance available to them. Excuse me. After RAD, we have a stable funding platform. So what rental assistance demonstration does for us is it converts all of our public housing units to Section 8 project-based vouchers. And that puts us on a funding platform going forward with a contract with HUD up to 20 years at the very beginning that these Section 8 project-based vouchers give you the difference between the tenant's income at 30%, so they pay 30% of their income for rent, and the project-based voucher gives us the rest, the difference between that 30% and market rate rent. So what it does is guarantees that we're always getting market rate rent via a portion of the tenant's income and the Section 8 project-based vouchers. Giving us market rate rent gives us a stable funding platform going forward. We can also borrow funds for needed repairs. So this allows us to leverage either mortgage our properties or go for low-income housing tax credits or other leverage to fund capital improvements or complete redevelopment. And it improves the living conditions. So we can, like I said, we fund all the capital improvements needed to improve the living conditions for current public housing residents. And the best thing for residents, maybe in the long run, is that the residents may receive a tenant-based housing choice voucher after 1 or 2 years, depending on the contract that we put in place. The new housing is going to act like any other project-based housing. So the tenant has the ability to take that voucher should they want to move out of this housing after a year or two and go and find housing somewhere else in a different neighborhood closer to a job or transportation that they want. So it provides opportunities after they leave this housing that they didn't have before. So this program is pretty much, we think, a win-win for the Public Housing Authority and a win for the residents, and we're very excited about this program. So in February of this year, HUD awarded RAD commitments for 5 of our communities. 3 of these properties are located in the Choice Neighborhoods area that I was speaking about before with the Grid Bike grant. The Choice Neighborhoods area is currently undergoing a grant-funded transformation planning process. So those redevelopments of those 3 properties, which are A.L. Crone Homes, Frank Luke Homes, and Sidney P. Osborne Homes, are on hold until we finish the transformation process, and then we will look at going for a Choice Neighborhoods implementation grant and redeveloping those properties. So the other 2 properties that we were awarded are Crone East and Foothills Village, and those are the ones that we're ready to move forward with. And Angela Duncan is going to talk about those properties.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. Ale Crone East is our first planned redevelopment under RAD. It's a current 38-unit public housing community built in 1961. It's located at near 14th Street and Monroe in the Eastlake Park neighborhood. Due to the property's age, deterioration, and obsolete design, what we're proposing to do here is relocate residents, demolish the existing buildings, and construct a brand new multifamily rental community. We are also proposing to rezone, go through the rezoning process for the site to the walkable urban code. Next project we're looking at for RAD is Foothills Village. Foothills Village is located at near 7th Avenue and Southern. It is a 200-unit public housing property built in 1971, and it is in need of a major renovation. The plan here would be to relocate residents temporarily while we conduct a major rehabilitation project. And that project would include replacing outdated systems at the property, updating the interiors of the units with new flooring, new appliances, and so on, new cabinets, and then also replacing the existing landscaping with new landscaping. Both projects would incorporate energy efficiency measures into the design as well. We are requesting approval today to move forward with both of these projects, including seeking financing through the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program, forming city instrumentalities to serve as part of the ownership structure for both projects, allocating additional Section 8 project-based vouchers if needed to make the projects more competitive, and acquiring other loans and grants to help with the costs of the project. In addition, we are asking that we allocate some housing department funding to cover funding gaps in the project should it be needed, with up to $3 million for the Crone East project and up to $4 million for Foothills Village. The funds would come from our public housing or affordable housing funding sources in the housing department.
So in addition to the request today, we are going through a separate process, a request for proposals for a co-developer for both of these projects so that we can submit for low-income housing tax credits. We are required to have a co-developer. That it was out on the street. I think it just came in, the proposals just came in this week. So we're reviewing those proposals, and we will come back at the June meeting to request approval to award the bid for the co-developer. So additional RAD applications. So in the beginning, I said we were also going to ask for 6 additional properties to apply for RAD for improvements for 6 additional properties. So we do believe that this so benefits both the Public Housing Authority and the residents that it would be optimal for us to go forward with additional RAD applications, especially for many of our older senior properties. So the applications that we're requesting are as follows. So Maryville Parkway is a property located in District 5. It was built in 1974 and has 108 units of senior housing. Senior public housing is for age 62 and older. Washington Manor also is located in District 8. It was built in 1979 with 112 units of senior housing. Pine Tower, also in District 8, was built in 1961 and has 156 units of senior housing. McCarty on Monroe in District 8 is actually fairly new, built in 2009 with low-income housing tax credits. It has 34 public housing units and 35 affordable housing units, all senior housing. We would be converting the public housing units to RAD. Aeroterra Senior, one of our brand new properties built in 2012 with low-income housing tax credits and the Hope 6 grant. It has 60 units of public senior housing. And last is the Summit, located in District 3. It was built in 1979. We bought it and significantly rehabilitated it in 2013 with Hope 6 grant and neighborhood stabilization funds. It has 50 public housing units and 156 units of affordable housing. So there are 6 properties with 520 units of public housing in various conditions. Some of the older senior housing that I described require major system replacements like electrical, plumbing, HVAC. Many of them require remodeling and modernization of the units themselves with new cabinets, new flooring, appliances, things like that. So each property varies in the need, and we will be assessing that as part of this process. The newer properties that were just built require little, if any, repairs, and the benefit to that is converting to RAD just gives us a stable funding platform going forward, so we don't have to get behind in repairs and have those deteriorating living conditions going forward. So the next step, should we receive your approval to proceed, we will hold meetings with all of the residents at all 6 sites. This is a requirement by HUD to go out and talk to the residents and tell them about the rental assistance demonstration program, what it means to them, how it affects them. We have to answer all their questions, and we have to submit the minutes and the questions back to HUD as part of our application. So as soon as we finish those meetings, we would apply, submit an application to HUD. And while we are waiting for award, we will go ahead and plan the conversions to rental assistance demonstration should we receive approval from HUD. Once we get those commitments from HUD, what we will do is come back to the subcommittee with a plan for each property to tell you how we are going to go about what we plan to do as far as renovations and remodels, and also the timing of each of the 6 properties. So a very broad overview of the timeframes, just in case you're wondering. The Crone East redevelopment and the Foothills Village redevelopments that Angela was talking about before are on a very strict timeline from HUD. When they give you the RAD approvals, they want you to go for the very next low-income housing tax credit round. So the next round for us is 2018. So we will be submitting in March of 2018 for Crone East, 9% low-income housing tax credit. Somewhere around that same time, we will submit for a 4% low-income housing tax credit. That's not competitive. It doesn't have to go in March, but it has to go sometime in 2018. So should we receive approval immediately from Arizona Department of Housing in 2018, then we will proceed with the reconstruction of both properties. And so Crone East will be the fastest one because it's a demolition and a rebuild. We should be finished with that by 2020, we assume. Foothills Village will take a lot longer because it's a section by section remodel. We have to move residents out of a building, rehab that building, and move the residents back in. So it will take a little longer. We estimate that'll take at least a year more to complete. The new applications that we're talking about today, some of them, if we get approved right away from HUD, we can convert some of them right away in 2018, those that don't need any renovations or any work to the property, and we're just converting to a stable funding platform. Others will take some time and maybe even some mortgages or other leverage that we're looking for, so we'll have to find some financing for that. So we're estimating that those will be complete maybe by 2024. And then last, the Choice Neighborhoods properties that are already approved for RAD, we are waiting again for the transformation plan to be approved by HUD, submitted and approved by HUD, and then also looking for an implementation grant to help us provide some gap funding for low-income housing tax credit applications to do Luke Crone Homes, Frank Luke Homes, and Sidney P. Osborne Homes. So, with that, today we're asking the subcommittee to recommend City Council approval of authorization to proceed with actions necessary or appropriate to redevelop Crone East and Foothills Village communities, and also approval to submit RAD applications for an additional 520 units of public housing in 6 communities.
Wonderful, thank you. Councilman.
So this is federal funding. This
Yes.
is not general fund funding. What happens if the feds, so we go ahead and do this, we make the applications, we get halfway through with the projects or something, and they dramatically cut the funding? I mean, I guess, are we planning for that? I mean, it's certainly a possibility, I would assume. Maybe I'm wrong.
So HUD says this is a no-cost program. So what it is converting us from one model to another model. So what they're taking us out of their public housing funding stream and putting us in their Section 8 project-based voucher funding stream. So for now, there's no indication that will get cut.
For now, I
now.
heard that for now in there. You try to slide that one in there, and I guess at some point the money is coming from somewhere. So how stable? I mean, do we have any idea the president's proposals? I mean, any idea what's going to happen? But it shouldn't impact what we can do. Is that right? It just seems at some point, if somebody cuts your budget 20%, you're going to have to scale back what you're doing.
So, Madam Chair and Councilman Waring, it actually, the Section 8 project-based voucher program is a lot more stable than the public housing program. The public housing program has been cut at various percentages over the last 10 years. They play with that every year depending on their funding. The Section 8 project-based voucher is a contract with HUD. So we will have, going into this, a 20-year contract with HUD to start with at a certain level of funding. So they have to commit to that. And so far, since the project has begun, the Section 8 project-based voucher program has been very stable, and most of their funding goes into that program.
So the money the federal government gives us, this should be better than the alternative, which you told me before. I would hope we wouldn't vote on something that would make things worse. So hopefully, theoretically, going forward, it's better. It's better because it's more stable, but because it's kind of written down as a contract, you think for 20 years, we'll be good to do what we need to do to advance the program as has been defined by the federal government.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, trying to translate your thing into English, or at least English that I understood anyway. Sometimes, no offense, it just gets a little bit wordy, and for
Understood.
people watching at home too, I think what I just said, maybe that last sentence or two, was what we're doing in a nutshell. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
And I think not all of my colleagues were here when we sort of began this process, at least not on the subcommittee. Could you sort of explain our responsibilities as a public housing authority and what it would mean as we transition public housing to RAD? Is that,
So no, I'm not
so at the
understanding.
end of this process, the Public Housing Authority will have very different responsibilities.
There we go. Yes, so currently we operate 2,700 units of public housing, and we have staff who maintain and manage the properties and rent out, and we have property managers on the properties, and we run it as public housing, as I said. So we get funding from HUD, and we own and operate this public housing. With RAD, we convert those public housing units, some of them, the one that we do demolish and rebuild, we convert that into a mixed income, affordable and public housing, or affordable in Section 8, project-based voucher community. So it mixes the incomes in there, and it provides a much more stable funding platform going forward. It also is professionally managed. Because we have investors, we have to be very cost sensitive and professionally manage those projects going forward. So it changes us from a property manager ourselves into more of a compliance officer and an owner with contract property managers. But it's a better living condition for our public housing residents going forward. It's newer facilities. It's a mixed income unit. It decentralizes poverty in the way. So it's actually a very good transition for us. Not all of our properties will transition, like the low-income housing tax credit properties, into the mixed income. Like the senior properties that I was talking about will just transition over into a Section 8 project-based voucher property, and could or may or may not remain managed by us and maintained by us. And that's something we have to decide in the future. We'll come back and talk to you about that.
I think mixed income has shown its better outcomes, particularly for young people and students. So we do have some elementary schools in Phoenix where almost everyone who attends it comes from public housing, and a more diverse background does show better outcomes for our students if you can have people from different incomes at one elementary school. That produces better education. So since many of these are in my district, I hope that this is something that the school districts have said will be important as well, that diversity is really good for all people, but our students in particular. So as we redevelop, will there be recycling at these facilities?
And we will be talking about that further down in the agenda, but yes, we will be recycling at these facilities.
And properties like Crone, where it will be a full demolish, redevelop, we have very specific responsibilities to our residents about where they can be relocated and how their involvement in the decision-making. Can you speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. So when we either demolish and rebuild, or even when we move residents from a building and rehab the building and then move them back, we have very specific requirements from HUD. We have to offer them another place to live in public housing or a Section 8 project-based voucher. And we're still evaluating what we're going to do with the first two developments that we do. But we have to move them at our cost. We have to provide them with alternative housing, and then they have first right of return when we build the new property. So every one of them, just like we did with Hope 6 before, they have the first right of return to come back and live at the new property.
Any additional questions? Can we move all three together? Wonderful. Do we have a motion on items 12 through 14?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Now we will have a presentation from our Chief Sustainability Officer on public buying program for electric vehicles.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. It's exciting to actually be here. With me here today is Aaron Young from Arizona Public Service, their resident expert on electric vehicles. And missing in the other two chairs, but also wishing they could be here, is representatives from Arizona Electric Vehicle Association, as well as SRP. So this program was very much developed in partnership with this concept. And it's really a proposal of what we're asking for from manufacturers. And before we kind of get into what exactly the components of the RFP are, I'll say why electric vehicles could be so transformative for our community. The main benefit is certainly the clean air benefits. So when you look at electric vehicle, the tailpipe emissions are zero. There isn't a tailpipe actually. And so it's not just about carbon pollution or the particulate matter that may come out, but also the other products that come out of the tailpipe, like benzene and formaldehyde and all those other products that are in our air and ozone. And so by really changing and looking at our by promoting electric vehicles, we can really improve our local air quality as a result of that and meet our long-term goals to have clean air. Looking at our recently presented to you and others on council around our greenhouse gas emissions inventory, and one of the key aspects of that was actually looking at Phoenix region, the transportation emissions being higher than many surrounding municipalities. Our buildings are performing far better than other communities, but our transportation sector, 20% higher per capita than Las Vegas and Houston, and more than double of that with mass transit. And looking at our transportation 2050, it's a good strategy from promoting walking and biking and other forms of transportation, but the electric vehicle side is like attacking it from the other end to really just eliminating those emissions from vehicles. And so a really good opportunity to address our local air quality by looking at an electric vehicle program. I did kind of wanted to highlight this flashy car, kind of interesting. This is actually, I sat in this actually in sort of a test car in Los Angeles. And it's really just more of an example or prototype. But when you look at this,
Your hutch driving.
It goes 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.8 seconds. So think of your favorite fast sports car. This is faster than that. So it's fast. Can go 310-mile range, and the next year's model is going to go even further. And as well, the cost of the fuel for this vehicle is equivalent to about 30 cents a gallon versus regular gasoline. So really low cost to operate, super fast. And so my main point in bringing this up is really, what will cars in 10 years? Will this become more commonplace? That there's a real potential for the electric vehicles to be transformative. They're actually they tick all the boxes for what the opportunities are. Completely quiet to operate, really great opportunity, as sort of give that example. Globally, there's a real transformative. So this movement of electric vehicles, in Japan now, more electric vehicle charging spots than gas stations. This is just off a picture off the app that shows where you can charge your vehicle. So you'll definitely have to zoom in there. In China, I was with the mayor in China last year, and hearing from different cities who are installing 10,000 electric vehicle charging stations in their city and really considering a solution to pollution in many of those cities. In Beijing, you only can drive your vehicle certain days per year based on your license plate, unless, of course, you have an electric vehicle. So really a lot of market forces to really globally transform the market, to really promote and realizing that electric vehicles are the best opportunity and solution for transportation on the single occupant vehicle side. And so, so not only that, I'd like to have now Aaron talk about what's happening in the U.S. and in particular Arizona as far as our markets. So take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone, for having me here. So I'm going to give just a brief overview of the electric vehicle market in the U.S. and Arizona. So as you can see on the graph here, this is United States sales, most recent data that we have available through February. So modern electric vehicles hit the market in the end of 2010, and as you can see over the last 6 years, there's been consistent accelerating growth. That growth is only getting accelerating, and we saw over 35% growth in 2016 as compared to 2015. And so that trend nationally is what we're experiencing locally as well. In Arizona specifically, looking at what we have today, about 8,200 in the end of last year in the state. And so that growth of 35% nationally, we saw 38% growth increase last year in the state. So in total last year, there were about 2,300 electric vehicles sold in Arizona. And then, so this graph here looks into a little bit more detail so you can see the different vehicles that are being sold. And in the first 2 months of the year, we've already seen about 250 electric vehicles sold in Arizona. And so based on this accelerated growth rate, we can see that at the end of this year, we'll be at about 11,000 electric vehicles. And by 2019, we'll likely be at double the number we're at today. So the question that I think people might have is what's driving the growth? Why is this accelerating? And kind of the simple question and the largest contributors to this is that it's better cars for better prices. And so over the years, electric vehicles have seen their ranges increase while their costs have decreased. So on the left here, this image is the Tesla Model 3, which many people have probably heard about. It made headlines last year when it was first unveiled and got 120,000 pre-orders sight unseen in the first 12 hours. That then grew to 400,000 pre-orders in the next coming weeks. And that vehicle is expected to start hitting the roads this summer in California and then rolling out nationally. And then on the right, you have the Chevrolet Bolt EV, which is Chevrolet's sub $40,000, 238-mile range vehicle that actually hit the roads for sale in December of last year, but it will reach Arizona in summer of this year. And so what these two are an example of is a trend that's growing among all automakers in the United States. So basically every other major automaker has announced plans to release a 200-mile range, sub $40,000, call it a more affordable electric vehicle in the next 5 years. And so when looking at this, for Arizona specifically, electric vehicles have a great opportunity, as Mark had mentioned, from an air quality standpoint. They have significant benefits with NOx reductions, VOCs, which are precursors to ozone. But as we look at the future with electric vehicles, the potential for them to be completely carbon-free and cause no pollution and charge off of solar is really great. This is a chart from our integrated resource plan, most recently filed with the Corporation Commission. And so the expected electric vehicle load based on this accelerated growth can more than be accommodated by the expected solar we anticipate to be on our grid. And then in addition, electric vehicle charging is typically a more flexible load as opposed to other things in the home. People who drive an electric vehicle and have a 200-mile range don't typically need to recharge their entire vehicle at the end of the day. So given the right price signals, availability of workplace charging, that kind of thing, you can really see electric vehicles actually helping integrate renewables into the grid and improve the efficiency of the grid overall. And so finally here, just kind of in summary, we expect the EV market to continue to grow in Arizona as a result of greater EV model variety. So this chart on the right here, sorry for the small font, but what it's illustrating is the electric vehicles that have been announced by automakers and what vehicle segment they fall into. And so this is looking out to 2021. And so you see an increasing number of vehicles, electric vehicles becoming available in the SUV crossover market, which is the largest growing vehicle market in the US. In addition, as I discussed, longer EV range, which is driven by declines in battery cost. Faster charging, which is something that is rapidly developing, but Teslas have been known because they have the type of gas station called a supercharger. That's becoming a standard that all other automakers are being able to adopt, and so you're going to see electric vehicles that have that can do the same thing as a gasoline vehicle, but only for cheaper cost of fuel. And then from our standpoint, we see them as flexible. They'll increase the efficiency of the grid, and then they'll be able to accommodate more renewables.
Thank you. So talking about specifically what is the program and how will it work, it's really looking at a bulk purchase program that's available to the public and to businesses to be able to buy special time, limited time offer discounts on electric vehicles, sort of the sedan style type models. And it's really modeled after something that happened in Boulder, Colorado. They kind of did a similar program there and really had a lot of public interest in that, a lot of pent-up demand of people thinking, okay, now is the time to do it, and particularly coming with a message of the multiple partners who will be involved to say, look, this is a good time. Certainly looking at that graph, that there's a lot of people say, wow, is electric vehicle really relevant? And when we only sold 4 in the state in 2010, well, now it's actually becoming commonplace, and the new models coming out, all manufacturers coming out with new models. This is really going to be a manufacturer and dealer offer available specifically, and that with multiple partners promoting it, And the contract's actually going to be, it won't be with the city, it'll be actually the public going to those dealers and having a contract directly with those dealers. And our relationship with the dealers and with our partners will simply be in relation to promotion and reporting of how successful it was and looking at the changes in uptake. So pretty limited relationship, and completely the relationship will be strictly with the buyer and the actual car dealers. And the program is planned for launch in this fall. So certainly one thing is this is proposed. It's really, we're seeing what the manufacturer is going to propose. There's, I suppose, a likelihood that manufacturers, although some have expressed interest, may decide not to do it, but we're certainly thinking we'll get good interest from manufacturing, a number of manufacturers to want to launch this program for this fall. So we're really excited, and we'll come back and report on what they're planning on offering, what the deal will be, and what it'll look like for the public. And I think it's a really great opportunity to just help bring to our community this opportunity. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Exciting, and hopefully we can be a leader in electric vehicles. And I think, can you speak a little bit to the results that Boulder got?
So Boulder, really they they only had one manufacturer apply, so it was just a Nissan for them. And with that one manufacturer, they saw their sales over that 3-month period go 4 times multiple with their promotion. And we're thinking with our region being more than 10 times theirs, as well as significantly more partners at the table, we're actually seeing a significant uptake. And it's hard to project how many people will buy the electric vehicle, but we're really thinking it could be pretty transformative with quite a large number of electric vehicles purchased. And there actually is a real benefit to having people even come here from other areas and actually wanting to buy their electric vehicle in this region just simply because they're a great offer for a limited time offer. So.
And Aaron, could you speak a little bit to other things utilities are doing to support electric vehicles?
Yeah, so nationally there are a lot of different things utilities are doing. From kind of the extreme end in California, you'll see that utilities are deploying hundreds of millions of dollars in EV charging infrastructure. But then on the other end, there's utilities like APS that have done pilot time of use rates specifically for electric vehicles, and a lot of education and awareness. So I think that one of the key barriers, so as these vehicles are coming available, they have better value propositions for customers. What we're seeing is that people are still relatively uninformed on them. So programs like this is kind of a best practice that utilities have been doing across the country, where it's just about getting electric vehicles on customers' minds and making them aware of what the benefits are for them to adopt.
And will you partner with us in promoting this when it launches?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why we're here.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
As will, and support from is APS and EVAZ as well, are also and other local communities who are wanting to sort of commit to amping up some marketing dollars are certainly able to kind of participate as well. So we want to make it a region-wide initiative available to all the residents of the valley.
Wonderful. So if a dealer in Chandler wanted to partner with us, we could also talk to Chandler and the dealer in Chandler.
Yeah, and this concept was developed in the Electric Vehicle Arizona Stakeholder Group, which is a stakeholder group that began in around 2010 with APS, TEP, and SRP. So bringing together these different stakeholders. So really all these stakeholders have been a part of this conversation for last year now about how we can all work together on this.
Wonderful. And it's also local fuel in a way.
Right, yeah.
So even the fuel side will be creating jobs in our region.
Yeah.
Whereas we are not major oil exporters in the Phoenix market.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Any additional questions? Well, thank you for bringing this innovative tool to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We teased it earlier, but now it is time for recycling at City of Phoenix multifamily housing properties. So we'll welcome back Cindy Stotler and Ginger Spencer, our Public Works Director. Edward?
Madam Chair, and subcommittee members, I'll start us off with this presentation. So thank you for the opportunity to share information about a wonderful partnership that the Public Works Department has with our Housing Department. And in an effort to lead by example, when it comes to recycling, we're offering multifamily, or we're offering recycling at our public housing facilities. So Mayor and Council approved our Reimagine Phoenix effort initiative back in 2013, which was to achieve a 40% diversion from the landfill by the year 2020, so in the next 3 years. Since we've started the program, we've been able to achieve a current diversion of 20%. So when we first started off, we were at 16%, so we've been able to move the needle. But as you can see, we've got a ways to go and a quick time period to do it in. So what we've done is our solid waste ordinance, which is a part of the Phoenix City Code, it allows us to actually provide recycling and garbage collection or services to institutional organizations. So institutional organizations include churches, nonprofits, and government facilities. And so that's what allows us to do this. So we have partnerships with the housing department that you're going to hear about in just a second, with our aviation department, Phoenix Convention Center, as well as the Parks Department. So we're silo busting and not only focusing on public-private partnerships, but also public-public partnerships. So not to steal any of Jesse's thunder, but this is Jesse Duarte. He is our Deputy Director of our Community and Engagement Services Division, which includes our specialized operations. So he's going to talk specifically about our experience when it comes to providing recycling at our public housing facilities.
Madam Chair, council members, one of the things back in 2012 when we started this, we started working with the housing department, and what triggered that they were doing a rehab at Parkley Apartments, a major rehab. So what we did is we started working with them to get rid of the debris and also started giving them their trash service. But as they started going through each phase of the rehab, we decided, why don't we try recycling? And as it went through, it turned out very well, and Parkley was kind of like a model for us, working with the housing department and Dunlap McGee, really good property managers, are working with us as well. So through the processes we've gone through since 2012, right now currently the City of Phoenix Housing Department has about 40 multifamily apartment complexes. Out of those, we service 13 of those with trash and recycling. 4 of those we just service trash, and 1 of them we service recycling currently right now. So what we're doing right now is trying to work on the other 4 because we know once we get the recycling into those 4, we're actually going to save them some money as well because it's a little bit less to our recycling cost. We're working on the other one for the trash service as well. But if you look at it right now, we looked at all 18 that we service, the 13 that we service, and currently right now we're at about 13% diversion rate with a national average about 14.6. It's actually pretty good, 13%. But a lot has to go with working with ASU recently. They did a study for us back in December of 2015 to March of 2016. So the 2 that they studied was Parkley and Marcos Denisa. These 2 apartment complexes, we worked with ASU to develop a program, but through the process, currently right now, through the process when they completed in March, we did another audit back in September of last year, and right now we're at about 13% diversion rate at Parkley, and it's 7% for Marcos Denisa. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Cindy.
Thank you. So the City of Phoenix Housing Department and our property manager, Dunlap and McGee, were both very eager to prove to the multi-housing community that recycling can be done in multi-housing. It's not very common, so this was a kind of a demonstration program. We both went all in on promoting this program, and how we did that was pretty much using the same tactics that we use for all of the HUD programs that we roll out. So the 3 things you have to concentrate on to roll something out like this and make it successful are communication, education, and reward. So that's what we did. So you'll see some of the communication included door-to-door outreach. We formed a green team, had green shirts, and kind of promoted the message, went out door to door. We had community meetings, but when you have community meetings, you generally only have about 10% of the community show up. So you really need to go out and really reach out to people and talk to them where they are. We had a lot of educational materials that we developed in coordination with the Public Works Department to get out to our residents, including a welcome to your new home packet. This is the Marcos Denisa welcome to your new home, and we have a number of recycling education materials to talk about why recycling is good, why you should do it, what are the benefits to recycling. We did a number of reward programs just to get it going because a lot of times people need a little bit of incentive to change their habits. So, excuse me, at Parkley, we actually have enough units there that we were able to give discounts on a month's rent for the best recycler, after 6 months. At Marcos Deniza, that is more of a public housing property, so we don't have the same ability to fiddle with rent. So we gave a lot of gift cards and things like that, other things. So what we would do is the green team would go out and catch people recycling and give them a raffle ticket, and then we would raffle once a quarter for prizes for recycling to reward that program. We also, one of the big keys of getting this recycling program going was finding champions that live there, especially long-term, because you have a lot of turnover in multifamily. So we found some champions both at Parkley and at Marcos Deniza that were willing to go out and talk to their neighbors and encourage recycling and tell them how to do it, and things like that. So so we were very excited that the programs worked, that ASU came out and developed some best practices based on what we did. That made us feel really good. We think that recycling can work going forward. It just depends on, it's heavily reliant on communication with the community, and it's ongoing and constant education. You can't let it lapse because of the turnover that you have, and because sometimes residents fail to see the incentives and they will lapse back into old habits. So we still have the green teams going. We still have a lot of activity going on. The one thing I will say is that, we did go all in on these two just to make them happen. We knew ASU was coming out to study. We wanted to make a demonstration program work. We are looking at rolling it out to the rest of our properties and working with Public Works right now to see if we can get Public Works, if their bids can be about equivalent to the public sector bids that we get, we can have Public Works come in and recycle at all of our properties and do that. But we're going to have to figure out how going forward we can do a successful program ongoing without having to use our own funding for rewards and green teams and things like that. So we'll have to partner together, and we've been talking about that, about ways to provide incentives to residents that don't require costs from the Public Housing Department or the Phoenix Housing Department, and also doesn't require our own staff to go out so often and educate. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I think we've shown a lot of success, and I think partnering together we can develop some programs that are going to really work for us. So we're pretty excited about the future in recycling.
And that concludes our presentation. Happy to answer.
So are you sharing this information with the multifamily industry to get them more excited about potentially doing recycling at the different apartment complexes we have in the city?
Yeah, so Chairwoman Gallego and Councilwoman Stark, yes, we are working with the Arizona Multifamily Association, AMA, so that we can work with multifamily properties. Part of the challenge, not only with the constant turnover with residents as well as sometimes with property management, but is also infrastructure limitations. So that's a big thing when it comes to multifamily. And so we are working with AMA as well as Valley Partnership to have those discussions over the summer to see if we can come up with some creative solutions so that we can make recycling available to all of our residents.
And I appreciate you working with all of the stakeholders. I just want to be sure that everyone around the table is doing it with the spirit of problem solving. Yes, there are limitations with some of the apartment complexes that have been built, 30, 40 years ago, who probably were not thinking about doing this 30 or 40 years later. We are absolutely thinking about doing it now. In fact, we want to implement it now. We have new build construction happening all the time. It should be something that we're considering moving forward, and something that we should be looking at retrofitting. So I just want to be sure that we have some really great stakeholders and really good partners in the Phoenix Valley. We just want to be. I would like to be sure that everyone on the table, as we consider this option, this responsibility, I will call it, that everyone's doing it with the spirit of problem solving. We have to find a way to get this done, and I really appreciate I appreciate everyone at the table, because I know that that's where you come from. Thank you.
And Chairwoman Gallego and Councilman Valenzuela, yes, we are going to be working together to problem solve and come up with solutions. And also for existing properties, to your point, the zoning ordinance does allow for multifamily, for the property owners to come forward to the city and to request a change to the property. So basically, they would give up landscaping or additional parking spaces to allow for recycling infrastructure on their properties. And then our discussion moving forward is for new developments. So we hear you loud and clear.
And if I may, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, we had a lot of very educational experience with contamination and location of recycling bins and the distance between the unit and the recycling bin and how the difference that made. We have a lot of really good information that came from our demonstration programs that are going to help implementation in the rest of the public housing properties and Phoenix affordable housing properties, and then also in the multi-housing community as far as retrofitting existing properties. Building new is much easier, obviously, because you can plan ahead and put those bins very near, but we have a lot of very old properties that we have been able to locate these bins in the appropriate places. So again, if we can do it, I think that pretty much anybody out there can do it in a multi-housing property.
We have a few questions, but we first have one card, so I wanted to call up Stacy Champion.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. My name is Stacy Champion. I am here today as a constituent who's very excited about this moving forward. Speaking of creative solutions, I'm hoping that everyone can even think a little further outside of the box with some of this. And in cities like Austin and Orlando, they're doing some very interesting things, speaking to, how far things are away. I think it's like within 25 feet and 6.4 gallons per dwelling per week, giving people smaller containers for inside of their apartments that then they can take out. But I also think there's an opportunity to get really creative with some of the other things like the parklet program, right? So when you're talking about retrofitting, think even a little further outside of the box to maybe implement parklets that could even incorporate a community garden aspect to deal with some of the food insecurity issues that we have in our state, incorporate that with education tied to sustainability and recycling. I think that there are a lot of really interesting creative solutions moving forward that maybe somebody hasn't thought of yet, that then could also create community, which then creates people, caring about their surroundings. And then some of the other things that have been successful from my research is city-developed recycling collection site plans. So that's something possibly you guys could make that then would go to the different, just to make it really easy for the property managers moving forward. And then also having the building managers distribute that info when new leases are signed too, because of the high turnover. So, which it sounds like you guys are doing with the new packets, but I love the opportunity for us to make this really successful, but also even more creative. Like, this is an opportunity, I think, that could showcase our city in a really positive way and potentially become something that other cities could even implement. So, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your longtime leadership on this issue. Hopefully, this will be the year of great progress. And I think we have been doing more and more with sustainability at housing. So we have solar and we do have community gardens, I think, at every new property we've built recently, as well as several existing properties. When we have a property manager, does the property manager negotiate the contract for recycling and waste, or do we still?
So, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, yes, in the past, so we have 18 affordable properties that we manage in the Phoenix Housing Department, and we have let the property manager bid or contract for waste collection. I think that we have become, with this demonstration program and with the 40 by 20 goals, we have become more sensitive and aware to the city's goals and are much more committed now to working with the Public Works Department and maybe allowing them again to competitively bid and bring them in to help us implement recycling and do a better job of diverting our waste in public housing and in affordable housing.
And is our incentive to our partners just least cost, or do we have the ability to sort of do best results and best practices?
So the,
Is it at least it's a pass-through, and so they want to do it cheaply as possible?
pretty much, yes. I mean, it's affordable housing, so it doesn't have a high margin for profit at all, so you try to keep all your costs low. So, I mean, they were doing their job for us, which is keeping the costs low, but that's not the only thing, that's not our only goal. Also, we also need to be sustainable, and we need to be involved in recycling. And I think in speaking with Public Works, and they're much more committed now to our solid waste pickup, and I think that we can get to a point where they are very competitive. I think they've done a lot of looking at, with the demonstration programs, they've done a lot of studying of our properties, and I just think maybe we weren't communicating very well before, maybe we're communicating better now, but they believe, and I believe, that we can come very close to the same rates, but converting over to Public Works.
And do our residents, they're responsible for their own trash bins and recycling bins within the unit?
Yes.
And we have some residents with some pretty significant mobility challenges. And my office has been involved with just helping people navigate the process of getting a wheelchair. So I imagine if you do not have a wheelchair, taking your trash or recycling out to a bin is a challenge.
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, it is a challenge, and that's why those champions are a real big help with that, because some of them are just they're nice enough to volunteer their services to go help with trash on a daily basis and with recycling to get them out to the bins. Our staff does a lot of that too. The maintenance staff will assist, especially in our senior properties where many of our residents are mobility challenged. We find other ways to get their trash to the right place. So we will continue to do that. And the resident champions, it gives them a mission, and I think they like that. I think people sometimes need a mission, especially when they don't have much else going on. They have a lot of issues going on. So I think it's beneficial to both them and the residents that need the help. So it's a really good program.
When we come next to April and citywide volunteer recognition, we'll have to remember those champions as well for being great partners for us. Any further questions? Wonderful. Well, thank you for helping the city do a good job on our own properties. That is our final agendized item. Do my colleagues have any requests for future presentations for this subcommittee? We have no further cards from the public, so with that, we are adjourned.